The massive crystal palace of King Vorthak gleamed under the twin suns of Zephyr Prime. Today was special. Princess Lyra would celebrate her coming-of-age ceremony, and the entire royal court had gathered to witness the ancient tradition. Noble. Families from across the 12 star systems filled the grand hall, their blue-scaled skins shimmering with expensive jewels and ceremonial paint. Princess Lyra stood on the raised platform, her silver crown catching the light. She was 21 years old by human standards, but still young for a Zephyrian. Her purple eyes showed nervousness as she watched the gift-bearers approach. Each noble family would present her with a sentient being to serve as her personal companion. This was how young Zephyrian royalty learned responsibility and leadership. Lord Commander Vex stepped forward first. His gift was a fierce Cronin warrior, 7 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and red armor. The creature snarled and flexed its muscles, showing off its combat training. The court murmured approval. Such a gift showed respect for the princess, and her future role as a military leader. Next came Ambassador Krenex from the Vel Dominion. His gift was a beautiful Syrian dancer, her translucent skin glowing with bioluminescent patterns. She moved with perfect grace, her forearms creating flowing gestures that mesmerized the audience. This gift represented culture and refinement. One by one, the nobles presented their offerings. There were telepathic Mindari who could read thoughts from across a room, swift raven folk from the outer worlds who could fly faster than most spacecraft, even a crystalline being from the ice moons that could reshape its body at will. Each gift was more impressive than the last. Princess Lyra accepted each creature with formal words of thanks. Inside, she felt overwhelmed. These beings were powerful, dangerous, and exotic. How could she possibly manage them all? She glanced at her father, King Vorthak, who sat on his throne with an unreadable expression on his scaled face. Finally, all the noble families had presented their gifts. The ceremony should have been over, but King Vorthak rose from his throne. The hall fell silent. The king rarely participated directly in these traditions. "I, too, have a gift for my daughter," the king announced. His voice echoed through the crystal walls. "Guards, bring forth the human." A shocked whisper ran through the crowd. Human? The court had heard of these creatures from the frontier worlds, but few had ever seen one. They were considered primitive, barely worth notice. What kind of gift was this? 2 royal guards dragged a figure into the hall. The human was smaller than most of the other gifts, standing only 6 feet tall. His skin was pale pink instead of the blue scales of Zephyrians. He had brown hair that hung messily over his face, and wore simple gray clothing that looked like a prisoner's uniform. His hands were bound behind his back. The human lifted his head and looked around the hall with curious brown eyes. He did not seem afraid, which surprised many of the nobles. Most captive beings cowered before the royal court. This one examined the crystal architecture, the floating light orbs, and the assembled aliens with what looked like professional interest. "This is Alex Carter," King Vorthak said. "He was captured during our recent expansion into the Terran sector. He calls himself an engineer, whatever that means. Consider him my gift to you, daughter." Princess Lyra stared at the human in confusion. After all the magnificent creatures she had received, her own father gave her this ordinary-looking being. She could feel the smirks and whispers from the other nobles. Some probably thought the king was insulting her. Others might believe he considered her too weak to handle a more dangerous gift. "Thank you, father," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am honored by your gift." Alex Carter was pushed toward the princess. The guards cut his bonds but kept their weapons ready. He rubbed his wrists and looked up at Princess Lyra. For a moment their eyes met. He nodded slightly, a gesture of respect rather than submission. "Your Highness," he said in accented but clear Zephyrian. "I am Alex Carter, formerly of the new Terra Colony. I understand I am to serve you now." The princess was surprised he could speak their language. Most primitive species needed translators. "Can you understand me clearly?" she asked. "Yes, Your Highness. I learned your language during my time in captivity. I find languages interesting." Alex looked around the hall again. "This is remarkable architecture. The crystal formations appear to be both decorative and functional. They channel light and sound throughout the space very efficiently. Several nobles frowned at this comment. How could a primitive being understand their advanced building techniques? Lord Commander Vex stepped closer, his hand on his weapon. The human speaks too freely, Vex said. Perhaps it needs to learn proper respect. Alex turned to face the Lord. Commander. He showed no fear, only curiosity. I meant no disrespect, I was simply observing. In my culture, we appreciate good engineering when we see it. Your culture? Vex laughed harshly. You come from a species that has barely left its home world. What could you possibly know about engineering? Well, Alex said calmly, I designed the power systems for 3 colony ships and helped build the defense networks for New Terra. Before the war, I was working on improved faster-than-light communication systems, but I suppose that seems primitive to you. The hall grew quiet. Most of the nobles had assumed humans were simple creatures, good only for manual labor. This one spoke of technologies that even the Zephyrian Empire struggled with. King Vorthak leaned forward on his throne, suddenly more interested in his gift. Princess Lyra felt embarrassed and confused. She had expected to receive a simple servant, but this human talked like an educated being. She decided to test him. If you know so much about engineering, what do you think of our transport systems? Alex looked around the hall, noting the various floating platforms and gravity lifts. They work well for short distances, but I noticed some inefficiencies in the power distribution. Your energy crystals are impressive, but the connection points create bottlenecks. With a few modifications, you could probably increase efficiency by 20% while reducing maintenance needs. An old engineer from the Royal Technical Staff stepped forward. Impossible, he said. These systems have been perfected over centuries. No primitive could improve them. I would be happy to show you, Alex said politely. Though I would need access to your technical specifications and some basic tools. The engineer looked insulted. I will not have my work questioned by a savage. I am not questioning your work, Alex replied. I am offering to help improve it. That is what engineers do. We build on each other's knowledge. Princess Lyra watched this exchange with growing interest. The human was not backing down from experts who had served the royal family for decades. He was not trying to insult them, but he was confident in his abilities. This was different from the usual behavior of gift creatures, who were usually trained to be obedient and quiet. King Vorthak stood up again. Enough, he said. The ceremony is complete. Princess Lyra will now retire to her chambers with her new companions. We will see how well she manages them. As the crowd began to disperse, Princess Lyra looked at her collection of gift creatures. The Cronan warrior snarled at everything. The Syrian dancer seemed lost without music. The telepathic Mindari was trying to read everyone's thoughts, causing several nobles to shield their minds. Only the human Alex Carter stood calmly and waited for instructions. Come, Princess Lyra said to all her new companions. I will show you to your quarters. As they walked through the crystal corridors, Alex looked around with that same curious expression. Your Highness, he said quietly. May I ask a question? What? Why did your father really give you a human? This seems like an unusual choice for a Zephyrian king. Princess Lyra stopped walking. The other gift creatures continued ahead, but she turned to face Alex. I do not know, she admitted. Perhaps he thinks I am not worthy of a proper gift. Or perhaps, Alex said thoughtfully, he thinks you are ready for a different kind of challenge. The princess stared at this strange human who seemed to see things differently than everyone else. Maybe her father's gift was not an insult after all. Maybe it was something else entirely. She was beginning to think that Alex Carter might be more interesting than she had first thought. 3 weeks had passed since the ceremony, and Princess Lyra was having trouble with her gift creatures. The Cronan warrior kept challenging the palace guards to fights. The Syrian dancer needed constant entertainment and refused to eat Zephyrian food. The telepathic Mindari gave everyone headaches by reading their thoughts without permission. Managing them all was exhausting. Only Alex Carter seemed easy to work with. He had been given a small room next to the princess's quarters, and he spent most of his time quietly observing palace life. When she gave him tasks, he completed them quickly and often suggested improvements. When she asked questions, he gave thoughtful answers. This morning, Princess Lyra had an important meeting with the Trade Council about mineral rights in the outer systems. She was nervous because the council members were all older nobles who did not take her seriously. They often ignored her suggestions and made decisions without asking her opinion. "Your Highness," Alex said as she prepared for the meeting, "may I suggest something?" "What is it?" she asked, adjusting her ceremonial robes. "I noticed that you always sit at the end of the table during council meetings. That position makes you seem less important than the other members. If you sat in the middle, or better yet, at the head of the table, they would have to pay more attention to you." Princess Lyra frowned. "The seating arrangement has been the same for centuries. I cannot just change it." "Why not?" Alex asked. "You are the princess. This is your palace. If you want to sit somewhere else, who can stop you?" "It would be disrespectful to tradition." Alex nodded. "I understand respecting tradition, but sometimes traditions need to change if they no longer serve their purpose. What is the purpose of your seat at the council table?" Princess Lyra thought about this. "To participate in important decisions about the kingdom." "And does your current seat help you do that effectively?" "No," she admitted. "They often talk over me or forget I am there." "Then perhaps it is time for a new tradition." Princess Lyra considered this as she walked to the council chamber. The Trade Council was already assembled when she arrived. As usual, they had left her seat at the far end of the table. Instead of taking it, she walked to the head of the table where her father usually sat during formal meetings. "Princess," said Counselor Drex, an elderly Zephyrian with gold-tipped scales, "that is not your place." "Today it is," Princess Lyra said firmly. She sat down and gestured for the meeting to begin. "Please continue with your discussion about the mining rights." The counselors looked uncomfortable, but they could not argue with the princess in her own palace. As the meeting progressed, Princess Lyra found that her new position did make a difference. When she spoke, the others had to turn to face her. Her voice carried better from the head of the table. Most importantly, she felt more confident. The discussion turned to a dispute between two mining companies on the moon of Kepler-7. Both companies claimed the same territory, and tensions were rising. The council seemed ready to award the rights to the larger company simply because they had more political influence. "Wait," Princess Lyra said. "Has anyone actually surveyed the disputed territory recently?" Counselor Drex waved dismissively. "The original surveys are sufficient." "But those surveys are 50 years old," the princess pointed out. "Mining operations change the landscape. We should have current information before making decisions. Surveys are expensive and time-consuming," another counselor said. "The larger company has more experience. We should trust their judgment." Princess Lyra remembered something Alex had told her about human problem-solving. He said humans always tried to gather as much information as possible before making important decisions. "I think we should postpone this decision until we have better data." "Postpone?" Counselor Drex looked shocked. "We cannot keep delaying important matters." "1 week," Princess Lyra said. "Give me 1 week to get current information about the disputed territory. If the situation is as clear as you believe, then we will proceed as planned. If not, we will have the facts we need to make the right choice." The counselors grumbled, but they could not refuse a direct request from the princess. After the meeting ended, Princess Lyra hurried back to her quarters. She found Alex in the small workshop he had set up in a corner of her chambers. He was working on some kind of device made from spare parts. "Alex," she said, "I need your help. I told the Trade Council I would get current information about a mining dispute, but I do not know how to do that quickly." Alex looked up from his work. "What kind of information do you need?" She explained the situation on Kepler-7. Alex listened carefully, asking questions about the terrain, the mining methods, and the communication systems available. "This is actually not too difficult," he said. We can use the palace's communication array to contact the orbital stations around Kepler-7. They will have sensor data about recent geological activity. We can also request visual scans of the disputed area. If we combine that information with the economic data from both companies, you will have a complete picture. Can we really do all of that in 1 week? We can do it in 2 days if we work efficiently. Alex was right. Using techniques he called parallel processing, they gathered information from multiple sources at the same time instead of checking each source one by one. The palace communication staff was amazed at how quickly they collected data that usually took weeks to obtain. The results were surprising. The disputed territory on Kepler-7 had changed significantly since the original surveys. Recent volcanic activity had exposed new mineral deposits in areas that both companies had overlooked. Neither company was fighting over the most valuable part of the moon. When the Trade Council reconvened, Princess Lyra presented her findings with confidence. The counselors were impressed despite themselves. Instead of awarding the territory to one company or the other, she proposed dividing it differently based on the actual mineral distributions. Both companies would get valuable claims and the kingdom would collect taxes from expanded mining operations. "This is excellent work, Princess," Counselor Drex admitted reluctantly. "How did you gather so much information so quickly?" "I had help," she said, glancing at Alex, who stood quietly near the wall. Sometimes a fresh perspective can reveal new solutions. After the council meeting, several nobles approached Princess Lyra with compliments. Word began to spread through the palace that the princess was showing new leadership skills. Some people whispered that she was finally living up to her potential. That evening, Princess Lyra found Alex back in his workshop. He was completing the device he had been working on earlier. "What is that?" she asked. "A communication enhancer for your personal transport," he said. "I noticed that you lose contact with the palace when you travel to the outer districts. This will boost your signal range and clarity." Princess Lyra was touched. "You made this for me?" It seemed like something you could use. Leaders need good communication with their people. She watched him make final adjustments to the device. "Alex, why do you help me so much? You are supposed to be my servant, but you act more like an advisor." Alex paused in his work. "In my culture, we believe that everyone deserves the chance to succeed. You have good ideas and you care about your people. I just want to help you be the leader you can be." "Is that what humans do? Help each other?" "The best of us do," Alex said. "We have a saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. When one person succeeds, it often helps everyone around them succeed too." Princess Lyra thought about this concept. Zephyrian culture was based on competition and hierarchy. The idea that helping others could benefit yourself was foreign but appealing. "Will you teach me more about human ways of thinking?" she asked. "If you want to learn, I am happy to share what I know." As Princess Lyra returned to her chambers that night, she reflected on how much had changed in just 3 weeks. The other gift creatures were still causing problems, but Alex had become something she had never expected, a true friend and advisor. She began to suspect that her father's gift was not random at all. Perhaps he had known exactly what he was doing when he gave her a human engineer named Alex Carter. 2 months had passed since Princess Lyra's success with the Trade Council. Word of her new leadership style had spread throughout the Zephyrian Empire. Other star systems began requesting her help with difficult negotiations. The princess found herself busier than ever, and Alex remained at her side as her trusted advisor. But not everyone was happy about these changes. Lord Commander Vex watched Princess Lyra's growing influence with anger and jealousy. He had expected to marry the princess someday and rule the empire through her. Now she was becoming too independent and powerful for his plans. Vex blamed Alex for these changes. Before the human arrived, Princess Lyra had been quiet and easy to control. Now she asked difficult questions, made bold decisions, and earned respect from nobles across the empire. Vex decided that the human had to go. One morning, Vex requested a meeting with Princess Lyra in the palace's formal reception hall. When she arrived with Alex, Vex was waiting with several other military officers and nobles who supported him. Princess, Vex said with false politeness, we need to discuss a serious matter. Your human pet has become a problem. Princess Lyra felt her temper rise, but Alex had taught her to stay calm during confrontations. Please explain what you mean, Lord Commander. This creature fills your head with foreign ideas that go against our traditions. You used to follow proper Zephyrian customs. Now you change seating arrangements, question council decisions, and waste time gathering unnecessary information. These human habits are making you weak. My recent successes suggest otherwise, Princess Lyra replied, coolly. Temporary luck, Vex waved dismissively. Real leadership requires strength and decisive action, not endless questions and discussions. I challenge your human to prove his worth in traditional combat. When he fails, you will see that his ideas are worthless. Alex stepped forward. I accept your challenge, Lord Commander, but I request a modification to the terms. Vex laughed harshly. You want to change the rules because you know you cannot win? Not exactly, Alex said calmly. I propose we test leadership and strategic thinking instead of just physical combat. Give us each a small fleet simulation and let us command a space battle. The winner will be the one who achieves victory with the fewest losses. Ridiculous, Vex snorted. Physical combat has been our way for thousands of years. But is it the best way to test leadership? Alex asked. A true leader must think strategically, adapt to changing situations, and protect those under their command. A simulation would test all those skills. Princess Lyra watched this exchange with interest. Alex was not trying to avoid the fight. Instead, he was changing the nature of the challenge to something more meaningful. Several younger nobles in the hall began whispering among themselves. They seemed intrigued by Alex's proposal. Even some of Vex's supporters looked uncertain. Think the human makes a good point, said Captain Zara, a young officer who commanded one of the palace guard units. Modern warfare requires more than just strength. Strategic thinking is important too. Vex glared at her but could not argue without seeming old-fashioned. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. We will use the fleet simulation, but when I win, the human leaves the palace forever. And if Alex wins? Princess Lyra asked. That will not happen, Vex said confidently. The challenge was scheduled for the next day in the palace's military training center. News of the unusual contest spread quickly, and many nobles gathered to watch. Even King Vorthak attended, curious to see how his gift would perform. The simulation chamber could recreate any space battle scenario. Each commander would control a fleet of 12 ships in a complex asteroid field. The goal was to capture the enemy's command vessel while protecting their own. Vex chose his fleet composition quickly, large battleships with heavy weapons and thick armor. This was the traditional Zephyrian approach to warfare. Overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower. Alex studied the asteroid field carefully before selecting his ships. He chose smaller, faster vessels with better sensors and maneuvering capabilities. His fleet looked weak compared to Vex's massive battleships. Is the human surrendering already? Vex mocked. Those little ships cannot stand against real warships. We shall see, Alex replied quietly. The simulation began. Vex immediately ordered his fleet to advance in a tight formation, intending to punch through the asteroid field and destroy Alex's ships with concentrated fire. It was a classic Zephyrian tactic that had won many real battles. But Alex did not meet Vex's fleet head-on. Instead, his ships scattered throughout the asteroid field, using the large rocks as cover. When Vex's battleships tried to follow, they found their heavy hulls difficult to maneuver between the floating obstacles. Alex's smaller ships darted in and out of the asteroids, striking at Vex's fleet from unexpected angles, and then disappearing before the battleships could return fire. Each attack was small, but they began to add up. Coward, Vex muttered as another of his ships took damage. Stand and fight. But Alex was not being cowardly. He was being smart. His ships worked together like a pack of hunters, coordinating their attacks through rapid communication. While Vex's ships operated independently, Alex's fleet moved as a single unit. The watching nobles began to murmur with interest. They had never seen tactics like these before. Traditional Zephyrian warfare, was about honor and direct confrontation. Alex's approach seemed almost like a dance, with his ships weaving between obstacles and striking from shadows. As the battle continued, Vex grew frustrated. His powerful ships could not bring their weapons to bear effectively in the cluttered asteroid field. Meanwhile, Alex's fleet continued their hit-and-run attacks, slowly wearing down the larger vessels. Then Alex revealed his real strategy. While most of his ships kept Vex's fleet busy with small attacks, two of his fastest vessels had circled around the entire battlefield. They approached Vex's command ship from behind, where its weapons could not reach them. "Impossible," Vex said, as he realized what was happening. "How did they get past my scouts?" "You forgot to watch your flanks," Alex said. "Your ships were all looking forward, expecting a direct attack." The two small ships attached themselves to Vex's command vessel like parasites. In real combat, they would have been boarding pods full of Marines. In the simulation, they represented a successful capture of the enemy flagship. The battle was over. Alex had won with a strategy that none of the Zephyrians had seen before. More importantly, he had done it without losing a single ship, while Vex's fleet had suffered heavy damage. The training center fell silent. Then Captain Zara began to clap slowly. Other young nobles joined her. Soon, half the audience was applauding Alex's victory. Principal Lyra felt proud and relieved. Alex had not only won the challenge, but had done it in a way that impressed even Vex's supporters. King Vorthak stood up from his observation chair. "Remarkable," he said. "Human, explain your strategy." Alex bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, I used principles of asymmetric warfare. When facing a stronger opponent, you do not try to match their strength. Instead, you use your advantages against their weaknesses. My ships were faster and more maneuverable, so I used mobility instead of firepower. And the coordinated attacks? Communication and teamwork, Your Majesty. Each ship supported the others, instead of fighting alone. We have a human saying, 'Many hands make light work.'" The king nodded thoughtfully. "These tactics could be useful in our border conflicts with the Dominion." Vex stood frozen in his command chair, staring at the simulation display. His perfect strategy had been defeated by ideas he did not understand. Worse, everyone had seen it happen. "The challenge is complete," Princess Lyra announced. "Alex has proven his worth. He will remain as my advisor." As the crowd dispersed, many nobles approached Alex with questions about his tactics. They wanted to understand how such unconventional methods could be so effective. Later that evening, Princess Lyra found Alex in his workshop as usual. "You could have destroyed Vex's entire fleet," she said. "Why did you show mercy?" "Because the goal was not to humiliate him," Alex replied. "It was to prove a point about different ways of thinking. If I had been too harsh, it would have made him and his supporters more angry. This way, some of them might actually consider learning new approaches." Princess Lyra smiled. "You think like a politician as well as an engineer." "In my experience, the best solutions come from understanding people as well as problems." That night, Princess Lyra realized that Alex had given her something more valuable than just tactical knowledge. He had shown her that strength could come from intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability, rather than just force and tradition. These human concepts were changing not only her, but the entire empire around her. 6 months after Alex's victory over Lord Commander Vex, Princess Lyra had become the most requested diplomat in the Zephyrian Empire. Star systems that had been in conflict for decades were asking her to mediate their disputes. Trade agreements that had stalled for years were suddenly moving forward under her guidance. Even neighboring empires were sending ambassadors specifically to meet with her, instead of King Vorthak. Alex had taught Princess Lyra many human concepts during this time. She learned about win-win negotiations where both sides could benefit. She discovered the power of listening carefully before speaking. Most importantly, she understood that being respected was often more valuable than being feared. These changes did not go unnoticed. King Vorthak watched his daughter's success with growing interest and pride. But other nobles in the court viewed her rise with suspicion and worry. "She grows too powerful. whispered Counselor Drex to a group of traditionalist nobles. Soon, the outer systems will look to her for leadership instead of the king. It is that human's influence, added Lord Commander Vex, still bitter about his defeat. He fills her head with dangerous ideas about cooperation and equality. Such thinking will weaken our empire. The princess was easier to control before, agreed Lady Kess, an elderly noble who had hoped to arrange a marriage between her son and Princess Lyra. Now she makes decisions without asking our advice. These nobles began meeting in secret to discuss what they called the human problem. They believed that removing Alex would return Princess Lyra to her former, more manageable self. But they needed to be careful. A direct attack on the princess's advisor would anger both her and the king. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra was preparing for her most important diplomatic mission yet. The planet Xerion in the third sector had declared independence from the Empire. 3 other worlds were considering joining the rebellion. King Vorthak wanted to send military forces to crush the uprising, but Princess Lyra had convinced him to let her try negotiation first. If we can resolve this peacefully, she told her father, we keep the planets and their loyalty. If we use force, we might win the battle but lose their cooperation forever. The king agreed to give her 1 month to find a peaceful solution. If negotiations failed, the military would take over. Princess Lyra and Alex spent weeks preparing for the mission. They studied Xerion's history, economy, and culture. They learned about the specific grievances that had led to the independence movement. Most importantly, they developed a strategy that could address the planet's concerns while maintaining the Empire's unity. The key, Alex explained, is to understand what they really want. Most independence movements are not actually about separation. They are about having more control over their own affairs. So we give them what they want. We give them what they need while keeping what we need. It is about finding creative solutions that work for everyone. The night before they were scheduled to depart for Xerion, Alex was working late in his workshop when he heard footsteps in the corridor outside. He looked up to see several figures in dark clothing moving quietly toward Princess Lyra's chambers. Alex's human instincts, honed by centuries of evolution, told him something was wrong. He grabbed a small communication device and slipped out of his workshop to follow the intruders. The figures stopped outside Princess Lyra's door. One of them produced a small device that Alex recognized as a sonic disruptor. Such weapons could kill silently without leaving obvious traces. This was an assassination attempt. Alex quickly activated his communicator and sent an emergency signal to the palace guards. Then he did something that surprised even himself. Instead of waiting for help, he stepped out of the shadows. "Stop," he said loudly. "Palace security has been alerted. Leave now and you might escape." The assassins turned toward him. In the dim light, Alex could see they wore the masks that covered their faces, but their expensive clothing suggested they were nobles rather than common criminals. "The human," one of them said. "Perfect. We can eliminate both problems tonight." They raised their weapons toward Alex. He dove to the side just as Princess Lyra's door burst open. She had heard the commotion and emerged wearing her sleeping robes but carrying a plasma pistol. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Assassins," Alex called from behind a decorative pillar. At least 4 of them. The attackers found themselves caught between Alex and the princess. Palace guards began arriving from both ends of the corridor, alerted by Alex's signal. The assassins realized their plan had failed. "This is not over," one of them hissed before they activated personal teleporters and disappeared. Princess Lyra ran to Alex, who was getting up from behind the pillar. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "I am fine," he said. But this was not a random attack. Those were nobles, not common assassins. Someone in the court wants us dead. The next morning, King Vorthak summoned both Alex and Princess Lyra to his private chambers. The king's face showed a mixture of anger and concern. "The investigation has begun," he said, "but finding the conspirators will take time. Meanwhile, you are both in danger." "We cannot cancel the mission to Xerion," Princess Lyra said. "If we do not go, the rebellion will spread. And if you are killed, The rebellion will be the least of our problems, the king replied. I am beginning to understand how valuable you have become to this empire, daughter. Your success rate in negotiations is higher than any diplomat we have ever had. We cannot risk losing you. Alex had been thinking about the situation all night. Your Majesty, I believe the assassination attempt was meant to stop the Xerion mission. The conspirators probably want you to use military force instead of negotiation. Why would they want that? War is profitable for some people. Military contractors, weapon manufacturers, nobles who control shipping routes. A peaceful solution to the Xerion problem would cost them money and influence. King Vorthak considered this. You think this conspiracy is about economics rather than tradition? Both, Your Majesty. Some nobles oppose change because it threatens their traditions. Others oppose it because it threatens their profits. When those two groups work together, they become dangerous. The king walked to his window and looked out at the capital city below. If I cancel the Xerion mission, I look weak. If I send you and you are killed, I lose my best diplomat and my daughter. If I send military forces without trying negotiation, first I confirm that our empire only knows how to rule through fear. There is a fourth option, Alex said carefully. What? Go to Xerion, but change how we do it. Instead of a small diplomatic party, take a larger group. Include military escorts for protection, but also bring other nobles who can witness the negotiations. Make it impossible for the conspirators to attack without revealing themselves. Princess Lyra nodded. And if we succeed with witnesses present, it will be harder for anyone to claim the results are invalid. You want to turn a diplomatic mission into a public demonstration, the king said. Exactly. Show the entire empire that negotiation and cooperation can achieve better results than force. King Vorthak thought about this proposal for several minutes. Finally, he smiled. Very well. We will do this the human way. Princess Lyra will lead a large delegation to Xerion. Lord Commander Vex will provide military escort. Councillor Drex and other senior nobles will observe the negotiations. If this succeeds, everyone will see it. If it fails, the responsibility will be shared. Alex realized the king's plan was brilliant. By including potential conspirators like Vex and Drex in the mission, he was forcing them to either support the negotiations or reveal their opposition publicly. There is one more thing, the king added. Alex, I am officially appointing you as special advisor to the crown. You will have the authority to speak for the royal family in diplomatic matters. Princess Lyra looked surprised and pleased. Alex felt honored but also worried. Such a high position would make him an even bigger target for the conspirators. Thank you, Your Majesty, Alex said. I will do my best to serve the empire. I know you will, the king replied. And after we resolve the Xerion situation, we will deal with the traitors in our own court. As they left the king's chambers, Princess Lyra walked beside Alex through the crystal corridors. Are you ready for this? She asked. No, Alex admitted. But I have learned that being ready is less important than being willing to adapt when things go wrong. Very human wisdom, the princess said with a smile. The best kind, Alex replied, hoping they would both survive the challenges ahead. The royal transport fleet approached Xerion after 3 days of travel through space. Princess Lyra looked out the window at the rebel planet below. Its purple oceans and green continents looked peaceful, but she knew tensions were high on the surface. The delegation was larger than any diplomatic mission in Zephyrian history. Princess Lyra and Alex led the negotiation team. Lord Commander Vex commanded the military escort. Councillor Drex and 5 other senior nobles came as official observers. King Vorthak had made sure that every important faction in the empire was represented. Remember, Alex said quietly to Princess Lyra as they prepared to land. The Xerion leaders are probably expecting us to make demands and threats. When we do the opposite, they will be confused at first. Use that confusion to build trust. The landing ceremony took place in Xerion's capital city. Governor Talon, the leader of the independence movement, greeted them with formal politeness but obvious suspicion. He was a tall, green-skinned humanoid with silver markings that showed his high rank in Xerion society. Princess Lyra, Governor, Talon said. "We are honored by your visit, though we wonder why the Empire sends diplomats instead of warships." "Because warships cannot solve the real problems," Princess Lyra replied. "We are here to listen and learn, not to make demands." Governor Talon looked surprised. This was not what he had expected from representatives of the Zephyrian Empire. He led them to the government building where the negotiations would take place. The meeting room was filled with the Xerion officials who clearly did not trust their visitors. Alex noticed that everyone sat on opposite sides of a long table, with empty space between them. This setup encouraged conflict rather than cooperation. "Governor Talon," Alex said, "might we arrange the seating differently? Perhaps in a circle, where everyone can see each other equally?" "Why?" the governor asked suspiciously. "Because we are here to solve problems together, not to fight each other." After some hesitation, Governor Talon agreed to rearrange the furniture. As people moved their chairs into a circle, the atmosphere in the room became less tense. It was a small change, but Alex knew that small changes could lead to big results. Princess Lyra began the negotiations with a question that shocked everyone. "Governor Talon, what would you need to remain part of the Empire while still governing your planet the way your people want?" The Xerion officials looked at each other in confusion. They had prepared for demands, threats, and ultimatums. They had not prepared for someone to ask what they actually wanted. "You are asking what we need?" Governor Talon said carefully. "Yes. The Empire is strongest when all its planets prosper. If Xerion has problems, we want to help solve them." For the next 2 hours, the Xerion leaders explained their grievances. They felt ignored by the central government. Their taxes were high, but they received little benefit from Empire services. Young Xerion citizens could not get good positions in the Imperial bureaucracy because of discrimination. Trade policies favored the core worlds over frontier planets, like theirs. Alex took careful notes while Princess Lyra listened with genuine attention. Lord Commander Vex and the other Zephyrian nobles looked uncomfortable as they heard how badly the Empire had treated these people. When the Xerion officials finished their list of complaints, Princess Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "These are serious problems. Let us see what we can do to fix them." Over the next 3 days, the negotiations continued. Princess Lyra and Alex worked with the Xerion leaders to develop practical solutions. They proposed reducing Xerion's tax burden in exchange for increased trade quotas. They suggested creating a local academy that would prepare Xerion citizens for Imperial service. They offered to fund infrastructure improvements that would help the planet's economy grow. Most importantly, they proposed giving Xerion more self-governance. The planet would remain part of the Empire, but would control its own internal affairs. This was something no one had ever offered to a frontier world before. "Why would the Empire agree to such terms?" Governor Talon asked suspiciously. "What do you get in return?" "A loyal ally instead of a rebel enemy," Princess Lyra replied. "A prosperous planet that contributes to the Empire instead of fighting against it. Peace instead of war," Alex added. "Your planet has valuable resources and strategic location. The Empire benefits more from partnership than from conquest." As the negotiations progressed, something unexpected happened. The Zephyrian nobles who had come as observers began to see the wisdom in Princess Lyra's approach. Even Councillor Drex admitted that the proposed solutions were better than military conquest. "This is remarkable," he said privately to the other nobles. "The princess has turned a rebellion into an opportunity for reform." Only Lord Commander Vex remained opposed to the peaceful solution. On the third evening, he cornered Alex in the guest quarters where the delegation was staying. "You have made the Empire look weak," Vex said angrily. "Real strength comes from forcing obedience, not begging for cooperation." "Which approach has worked better this week?" Alex asked calmly. "Threats or partnership? These rebels will betray us the moment they see weakness elsewhere. Maybe. Or maybe they will become our strongest supporters because we treated them with respect." Vex's hand moved toward his weapon. "The Empire was great before you arrived, human. It will be great again after you are gone." Alex realized that Vex was planning to kill him, probably making it look like an accident. But before either of them could act, Princess Lyra appeared in the doorway. "Lord Commander," she said firmly. Please return to your quarters. We have an early meeting tomorrow. Vex glared at both of them but had no choice except to obey a direct order from the princess. As he left, Alex felt relieved but also worried. The conspirators were becoming desperate. The final day of negotiations produced a formal agreement that satisfied both sides. Xerion would remain part of the Empire but with greatly increased autonomy. The other rebel worlds agreed to rejoin the Empire under similar terms. What could have been a costly war was resolved through compromise and mutual benefit. As they prepared to return to Zephyr Prime, Governor Talon spoke privately with Princess Lyra and Alex. Your approach has changed how we see the Empire, he said. If more problems are solved this way, Xerion will be proud to be part of a truly great civilization. The return journey to the capital was triumphant. News of the successful negotiations had spread throughout the Empire. Other frontier worlds that had been considering rebellion decided to request negotiations instead. The princess had not only solved the immediate crisis but had prevented future conflicts. King Vorthak met them at the palace landing pad with a broad smile. Daughter, you have exceeded even my highest expectations. The entire empire is talking about your success. That evening, the king called a special session of the royal council. In front of all the nobles, he made a shocking announcement. I am getting old, he said. And it is time to think about the future. Princess Lyra has proven that she possesses the wisdom and skill needed to lead our empire into a new age. Therefore, I am naming her as my official heir and successor, Yar. Nobles murmured with surprise. Royal succession was usually decided by combat or political maneuvering, not by demonstrated competence. Furthermore, the king continued, Alex Carter has shown himself to be invaluable to our empire's future. I am creating a new position for him, Minister of Innovation and Cooperation. He will help spread the successful methods used on Xerion to other parts of our territory. Lord Commander Vex stood up angrily. This is madness. You give power to aliens and weaklings. I give power to those who get results, the king replied coldly. And I remove power from those who oppose the Empire's best interests. Guards, arrest Lord Commander Vex for treason and conspiracy. The evidence from the investigation into the assassination attempt had finally revealed the conspiracy. Vex and several other traditionalist nobles were taken into custody. As order was restored in the council chamber, Princess Lyra looked at Alex with gratitude and amazement. In less than a year, he had transformed from an unwanted gift into one of the most important people in the Empire. 5 years later, Princess Lyra was crowned Queen of the Zephyrian Empire, after her father's peaceful abdication. Alex stood beside her during the ceremony, now as her husband and equal partner in leadership. Their wedding had been the first interspecies royal marriage in galactic history. The Empire had changed dramatically under their guidance. The old system of conquest and control had been replaced by cooperation and mutual benefit. Other human colonies had joined the Empire voluntarily, bringing new ideas and technologies. Trade flourished, rebellions ended, and even former enemies sought to become allies. On the day of Queen Lyra's coronation, Alex reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. A simple gift from a king to his daughter had become the catalyst for transformation on a galactic scale. No one dares confront her now, he thought with a smile, remembering the title that others had given their story. But it was not because Queen Lyra ruled through fear. It was because she ruled through respect, wisdom, and the revolutionary idea that strength came from lifting others up, rather than holding them down. The human way had become the Zephyrian way, and the galaxy was better for it.